Hi, I'm Nicole Ayers, a committee member for Authentic Voices, which is a fellowship that highlights diversity in publishing by bringing in authors who are women of color to invite them to the table in this educational, immersive, equity building program. Authentic Voices is sponsored by the Women's National Book Association and Women of Color Writers. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you today Cecilia Caballero, who is one of the fellows in this inaugural year of the program. Cecilia is an Afro-Chicana single mother, poet, creative nonfiction writer, speaker, academic, and educator who's completing her PhD in American Studies and Ethnicity at the University of Southern California. She's also a founding member of Chicana Motherwork, and she's a co-editor of the Chicana Motherwork anthology. As a teaching artist, Cecilia designs and facilitates poetry workshops for BIPOC folks to cultivate communal spaces of storytelling, healing, and liberation. And through her own creative work, she strives to demonstrate that the imagination is a site of social justice too. So welcome, Cecilia. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here and talk with you about the program.
Yeah, well, and just let me tell you, congratulations on all the accomplishments that you've achieved just this year alone. So in addition to being an Authentic Fellows, a Voices Fellow, you are a 2021 10 House Scholar, a 2021 Voices of Our Nation Fellow, and a 2021 Mukundista. So congrats, that's an amazing body of work that you're building. And I'm so happy that you are a part of this inaugural year.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Authentic Voices was actually my first creative writing fellowship, and then these other acceptances came in. So, but I'm really happy that this is the first fellowship that I received.
Fantastic. That's very cool that sort of opened the doors to all these wonderful things for you. What was it that drew you to Authentic Voices?
Well, I first heard about it through this group I'm part of called Women Who Submit. And I'm a member of the LA based chapter, but there's chapters across the United States. And what this program is the purpose is for women and non-binary writers to submit their work for publication in literary journals and venues. Mm-hmm. And I remember someone posted it on the online group, and I looked at it, and when I clicked the link, and I said, "Oh, this sounds perfect. This sounds just like me." Where when I read the application materials, it just said, we're looking for women of color writers, and the other part of the program that appealed to me when I was looking through the application is that there were different phases of the program, and also that there would be a publication opportunity and a stipend. So it just seemed to offer so much, and I was still pretty hesitant about applying just because of my own kind of self-doubt, or at that point I was still pretty new at applying to different venues or fellowships. But really, I do credit Women Who Submit, because that's their purpose of just submit, just try. Don't tell yourself no, let someone else tell you no.
That's a great motto.
Yeah, so I felt very motivated, so I worked on my application and I sent it in, not expecting anything. So I was really happy when I was notified that I was admitted.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And I love that you've got that community that's, helping encourage you and all, women and other non-binary folks to submit, because it like that. I love that motto. Let someone else tell you no, don't tell yourself no. That's powerful. So what has your overall experience been like as part of the Authentic Voices Fellowship?
I think it's been good, because I think mostly one of the parts that I've liked the most or found the most helpful is because we meet usually once a week. Sometimes there's a break in between, but having that consistency with accountability, knowing that, you know, we're showing up every week at the same time, it helps me also with motivation to keep going, especially because writing is so often a lonely kind of endeavor where, especially with COVID, sitting at home and working on our pieces alone. But I think with the weekly meetings and getting to know Natalie, the director, and the other fellows, and the other editors and authors who've come in to teach the different phases of the program has been really helpful. And the other thing is that because the fellows, all of them, we all identify as Black, Indigenous women of color. And in terms of having that kind of writing community, that is also pretty unique, because I think since we all identify in this way, it helps me feel more comfortable and supported. And there's also mutual understanding where there's just certain things we don't have to explain to each other, where we all have this, we have a common understanding, especially as we're all getting into publishing as emerging writers, and there's still so many inequities in publishing. So I think that's also another part of the program that has been so impactful for me.
I love that. I love that. And that was going to be my next question, was what's been so impactful? But I can imagine just that, like, it's one less thing to explain when you are able to be represented by your fellow classmates. I knew someone was sharing me recently, a woman of color, that she'd been in a program, you know, of all white students. And so the feedback she got was never as helpful as she needed it to be, because people just got stuck on her experience being a woman of color versus the actual story itself.
Yeah, right. And I think, especially as me and the other fellows have been working on our stories for publication, that, and I've heard bits and pieces of the other fellows' work, and even that process is just having understanding and support, and we can get beyond to, you know, how can we revise and edit and improve. I think that has been pretty unique. And in terms of how it's impactful, I think that also relates to that question more specifically for me, because I think it's also been in this space where I have found more support and encouragement to work on my work in progress. So there, a couple weeks ago, there was a point where I met with Natalie, the director of the program, and we were talking about my work and kind of where I was at in terms of a manuscript that I'm working on. And she was advising and explaining, because I'm so new to the publishing industry, I'm learning, I'm just soaking up so much in terms of what even the word count that's expected, or what the timeline is, what the process looks like to obtain a literary agent. And then Natalie was kind of emphasizing how important it is to have a completed manuscript as one of the key aspects that would help in terms of my work in nonfiction specifically. And I think for whatever reason, hearing it from Natalie, but also being in the program, it just felt like a switch went off, and I just told myself, and I said, okay, this is important to me. And I think at that point I had 10,000 words in my work in progress. But since then, I've been working on it consistently. So now I'm over 30,000 words in my manuscript. Yeah. And I think what this program does, Authentic Voices program does, is it helps me really even believe in the value of my own work. Or I think another aspect that helped me was, okay, telling myself and motivating myself to tell myself, oh, I think other people find value in what I'm writing, that um, not only is there a market out there in terms of, you know, kind of like the publishing industry kind of view, but there's people out there, there's my community out there that wants my work and other women of color writers work. And I just think from there, so I've been doing about 1,000 words a day, and I'm on track to finish this month to get to my full draft. And I couldn't be happier about that. And then I have, you know, my second book project. So I feel like I'm just getting started.
Wow, that's phenomenal. It just sounds like you like found that momentum that you needed to really fuel the work. That's amazing. I'm excited for you. Well, tell us just a little bit about the story you've been working on for this program that will end up being published at the end of the program.
Sure. The title is A Starburst Within Myself. And this takes place, the timeline itself is about a year, and the markers of time, first it's when COVID first started, to a year later, just before the vaccines were widely available. So that's kind of the backdrop. But the reason it's called A Starburst Within Myself is I kind of start in the beginning, where I describe my last time in a crowded indoor venue where I went to a theater performance of Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. It was adapted into an opera at UCLA. And I describe how I went there and I saw this performance, and it was that very same day, even on the way to the performance, where the county of LA declared an emergency with COVID. And so it just happened to coincide with me viewing this performance.
Wow.
And then a year later, I viewed the same performance online. So because of COVID, they did another performance, but that was filmed, you know, in a studio just with very few people. And then I watched that performance. So I talk about what it meant for me to, what literacy means to me, particularly with Octavia Butler and viewing this opera that was adapted from her novel. But I also tie it into my experience with my father. So the first line of that essay is, my father was my first library. And I kind of thread my love for literature and literacy as I grew older with Octavia Butler and my own development as a writer, which has a lot to do with my father, but at the same time kind of exploring what it means to be estranged from my dad, and that kind of happened more recently. So I feel really good about the piece. It's been edited, and I've developed it a little bit with one of the writers who was part of the program. And I also write about Octavia Butler in some of my other creative nonfiction work, and she's also part of my full-length manuscript. So I think I also feel good that this will be part of the publication, and how important Octavia Butler is to me. And her work is so relevant to our current circumstances.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, if the rest of your story is anything like that first line, holy smoke, say it again. That just really, like, I just felt myself sinking right there into your story. Will you say it again for us?
Sure. My father was my first library.
Wow. So that sounds like it's going to be just a really dynamite essay, and I can't wait to read it. I am been getting to talk to all of you fellows, and I'm like, when is this going to be published? Because I'm so excited to read these stories you developed, and I love that you're writing about a period in time when all of us experiencing it, it's one of those pivotal moments in our lives that we're all like, where were we when we got the news of the shutdowns and things like that, that will reach so many. But then also it's just, it will sound, so much your personal story and the power of another writer that's made such an impact on you. And I imagine, very much someday there's some young girl that's going to be reading your stories, thinking about how you impacted her. So just phenomenal. Thank you, Cecilia, so much for your time and for saying yes and applying to the program, because I know you've been a fantastic addition to it.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole, and thank you for the work that you've done, and Natalie and the whole team. So
it's a a labor of love for sure with everybody working on it, because it's just such important work. Well, take good care, and we are wishing you all the best.
Okay, thank you so much.